I'm going to sleep. I have a question. Why isn't there a console that broadcasts streams called Dreamcast that lets me play Crazy Taxi?
Oh, false alarm.
The 6th generation of consoles is one of the best gens out there. Nah, I rephrase that. The absolute best gen out there. It's the only generation where we had Sony, Microsoft, Sega and Nintendo consoles on the market. Prior to this gen we didn't have the Xbox, and in the 7th, Sega quit making hardware. But why is that? How does a competitor as big as Sega just quit from a moment to another? Well, we gotta go back to 1991. It's been 2 years since the release of the Genesis, and Sega just released Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a huge hit and puts Sega officially in the console map next to Nintendo. Everything's great until Sega released the Sega CD add-on for the Genesis, and this was just the beginning of the end. The Sega CD did okay for Sega, but it was still a flop with basically no games. And not long after, the same thing happened with the 32X. While Nintendo showed the capability of the SNES without add-ons with Donkey Kong Country and Star Fox, Sega released the 32X add-on for the Genesis for the American audience, while the Saturn didn't hit store shelves. The Saturn was already out in Japan, but Sega just needed to add fuel to the fire in the US with the 32X. The CD was already bad, but this was worse. Actually, they were thinking of making the 32X its own system with the Neptune, but thank God that didn't happen. But when the Saturn did release internationally, it wasn't the success Sega imagined. With graphics inferior to the competition, weird ad campaigns, distrust from the consumers, and no Sonic at launch nor mainline game at all, the Sega Saturn was a major flop for Sega, and it underperformed the competition and Sega's previous console. Sega desperately needed something that would make them kings, but that would be nothing more than a dream. Or was it? In 1997, Sega of Japan started production on their next console, codenamed Katana, and damn what a cool name. The Katana had a difficult development stage, with many misunderstandings and even lawsuits, but it was definitely worth it, am I right? The Katana, now officially called Sega Dreamcast, released November 27, 1998 in Japan. It was a massive success at launch, but unfortunately many retailers suffered from supply shortage. But a place where everything went extremely well was the United States. The Dreamcast released September 9th, 1999 or 9/9/99 in the US. Yeah, a perfect date for an outwardly console as this one. And hey, look at this design! It's so good, it's so sleek and small, I love it. Also with 4 controller ports, this is only something Sony fans would dream of. Speaking of controller, it sucks ass! I don't like this controller, it's way too big for the quantity of buttons they have, and why is there a hole here? Did Sega just ran out of ideas? Nope, it was for the VMU, a memory card with a screen. With it, you could play minigames and save game files. How cool is that? Not much, to be honest. Many people ask why is the Dreamcast logo blue in Europe, and I, the Messiah himself, I'm gonna tell you. It's because they need to avoid copyright infringements from a German publisher called Devola. What? Well, the old logo is kinda similar, but not much, and that was the logo at the time. Devola truly ripped them off in 2019. They just took the Dreamcast logo and rotated it a bit. Oh god, the irony. But hey, fair enough. At least here we got a better logo. I never understood why they chose orange instead of blue. That's just dumb. And man, can we talk about the intro? It remains to this day as my favorite startup screen from any console. The dev kit version. Yep, not only we have this iconic one, but the dev kit for the Dreamcast also had a custom startup screen, and this right here is godly. It reminds me of Koopa Troopa Peach from Mario Kart 64, and I don't know why. Maybe I adore this intro because I love steel bands, I don't know. The Dreamcast did very well at launch. It had one of the best launches for a Sega console, and with Sonic Adventure at launch, it only made things better. Sonic Adventure, the quote-unquote Sonic's first 3D game, let's just forget 3D Blast and R exist. This game is adored by so many people. Now me. I've never played it. Yes, I've never played the best Sonic game for many. I know, I'm a jackass. What can I say? My love for the Sonic franchise took a grand fall in the last 5 years. I like the 2D stuff, including Mania, but the 3D games? Man, the only ones I care about are Heroes and Unleashed, and that's just nostalgia speaking. Aside from those, I played 06, 20 minutes in and I broke the game, and Frontiers, which was a big disappointment for me. I didn't like this game at all, but that's a story for another day. When I say another day, I mean never. So back to Sonic Adventure. It looks cool, people seem to enjoy it, and I may even play it someday and talk about it. And this time, I really mean it. I'll definitely be avoiding Adventure DX on the GameCube because... but also because the original is the definitive version. I've also heard Chaos is a pretty neat boss, something that's not Eggman is always refreshing, except when they f*** it up, and it's a lot. Another game that is considered by many as one of the best games of all time and the best from the Dreamcast is Shenmue. Shenmue was created by Yu Suzuki, the guy who made many other Sega IPs. Virtua Fighter? Does it ring a bell? No? Then what about Virtua Racing? No? Yeah, me neither, I don't know any of these games. Shenmue started as an RPG set on the Virtua Fighter world for the Sega Saturn. Then development shifted over to the Dreamcast and then became its own thing, and that's Shenmue. By far, the most expensive game ever developed at the time, with a budget around $47 to $70 million. Wow, for a game in the late 90s, this is mind-blowing. Shenmue released 1999 in Japan and then next year in the rest of the world. And man, I have pity for Sega. They spent millions of dollars for a game and a console nobody owns, so in result, 1.2 million copies were sold. Oof, they definitely didn't get their money's worth, and Shenmue was a commercial failure. What a shame. I've never played Shenmue, or intend to, it doesn't mean I'll never play it. It just doesn't hold up as much as it did 2 decades ago, and that's because the true Shenmue substitute would only come a few years later. Jokes aside, I truly believe it's a good game. I've heard many slander about the game, and even if I've never seen the start screen in my life, I still defend this game for what it did. And hey, in 2001 we got a sequel, Shenmue 2, but it was exclusive to Xbox, so get the hell out of here. Oh, it's only exclusive in the US, it did release for the Dreamcast in Japan and Europe, but because I've already given all my Shenmue trivia to you all, I'll just call it a day and move on to the next game. Did you know Soul Calibur got its start with a Dreamcast? Do tell. Well, not exactly, the original came out first in arcades, but it was ported to the Dreamcast very quickly. Soul Calibur is a game I've played around in there, but it's been a while since I've played one of these games up, mainly because I'm more of a Tekken guy than anything, if you know what I mean. It was a great game for a launch title. If the Dreamcast needed a fighting game they could call their own, Soul Calibur was a perfect fit. This game is what Tekken was for the PS1. Truly an amazing game. It's sad the series is now in the mud now. Ah, Crazy Taxi. Yes, a goofy automobile. This one is a classic, just driving around, causing rampage and mass chaos. It's perfect. In a world where GTA wasn't 3D yet, this was amazing. This was the GTA from that generation, except without the guns, pornography, heists and big smoke, but it's still the same thing. This series is surprisingly big, with even a mobile game released in 2014. What can I say? People do love that yellow car. Samba Amigo also got its start with the Dreamcast. This is a game made by the Sonic team, the same guys who made the Sonic games, if it wasn't obvious. It's a classic rhythm game where you use maracas and shake them to the rhythm. There's also a monkey here. Classic. It's really a good game, but still, Sega being the same old Sega, the series entered hibernation for 23 years and only in 2023 we got a new game, and in a time where not many people care about this crap. Next up on this list is a part of one of my favorite franchises of all time, and it's not Seaman. You'll have to wait a bit for that. Resident Evil Code Veronica released for the Dreamcast in 2000, and that's cool, an exclusive RE game for the Sega machine. Neat, until the ports came out 2 years later. I'm gonna be honest, this game is not that good. It's this and Resident Evil 0. These games are kinda mediocre. But hey, don't worry, we also got RE2 and RE3 for the cast. It's not a remaster, but it's still some solid ports of good games. I love Resident Evil, I really do, and I'm really looking forward to discuss the games in detail, but don't expect me to touch on Code Veronica in Zero. they're just not my thing. Here we have Seaman, one of the best games of all time. Source? Myself. Well, I've never actually played it. Until now. Let's go! Seaman. More like soggy bull. This game is like taking a diarrhea up my ass. This game is a full rotten, disintegrated, regurgitated human fish mixed in a blender. I'd rather take a shitty asshole and a big fish using my tongue. It's so much it so much it blows. It's the abomination of all time, a waste of time. Now it's time to put an end to this ignominious travesty. Oh. Yeah, I didn't like it very much. Phantasy Star was a pretty well-known RPG series on the Genesis, but on the Dreamcast we got Phantasy Star Online, one of the first online games on the Sega console. Released in 2000, this game was really ahead of its time. Marvel vs. Capcom is a classic. The mere idea of Marvel and Capcom duking it out is badass, but they made it even more badass. Not only we got the first game on the Dreamcast, but we also got the second game, Age of Heroes. And wow, this game does have a good character select screen. It's a sphere, round as heck, with Mega Man and the Hulk in it. It's gorgeous. Now, Jet Set Radio is a pretty good game, or Jet Grind Radio if you're American for some reason. It's just so beautiful, the cel-shaded style looks flawless here, it's perfect! This game is pretty good, an awesome OST and really addictive gameplay, you should really check it out if you haven't yet. This game later got a sequel called Jet Set Radio Future on the original Xbox, and that's it. Now, I don't consider myself as a fan of the series, but damn, they didn't need anything for the last 20 years, even F-Zero fans ate first than them. The last game I'm taking a look today is Sonic Adventure 2. It's exactly as the first one, but now with edgy Sonic. Jokes aside, I heard he's pretty good, even better than the original. I often like to talk about Shadow because he's edgy. Come on, it's fun! But deep down, I know he was a great addition to the series. Sonic Adventure 2 was a pretty important game for the Dreamcast, and that's because this was the last major title for the console, before it was discontinued in 2001. After the unveiling and release of the PlayStation 2, many gamers were more on board the Sony train than the Sega one. Sega just took a drastic fall after the PS2 release. With the GameCube and Xbox following shortly after, it got even worse. So in March 2001, Sega declared defeat and announced the end of the Dreamcast and hardware in general, now only making software for the other consoles. This was a major struck for Sega fans. I can't even imagine the pain, man. It does suck. But hey, not long after, we got our first Sonic game on the Nintendo console, Sonic Advance for the Game Boy Advance. The Dreamcast was really one of its kind. In terms of aesthetic, games and presentation, it was awesome. Hey, there's a reason why I use the Dreamcast in my 2DS XL. There's a general hope for a couple of years now that we are getting a Dreamcast 2, and if you asked me if I wanted that 7 years ago, I would say heck yeah, but now, just let the cast rest. We all know Sega's specialty is the games, not consoles. That wraps up my retrospective on the Dreamcast. It was fun talking about it, but unfortunately not many people give a piss about the Dreamcast, so I was basically talking to a door this whole time.
Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Monster, and I'm back with another banger. Today, I'll give a nicklet to someone that gives a piss to a Dreamcast. Stay tuned.
Oh, that's me, that's me.